Okay, everybody, here we are, man. We are going to be hitting up the second Led Zeppelin video of this particular day, and this is called The Rolling Stones versus Led Zeppelin. First off, shout out and a thanks to Harry Rogers. Harry, thanks very much for the recommendation, man. What I had done, if you haven't seen the previous video or if it might be blocked, it was the documentary that's up and coming for Led Zeppelin, Becoming Led Zeppelin. And in it, they were showing a couple of clips of mainly Jimmy Page and him answering questions in an interview format. There was also an intro kind of promo short video featuring Good Times, Bad Times. So more than likely that part of the video got blocked, and so I'm doing a little bit of cutting up to see if I can actually get it sold onto YouTube. So fingers crossed. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Anyway, in this case, I wanted to separate this particular portion from that portion. I don't think that they belong together. So this is Harry's recommendation to us, the Stones versus Led Zeppelin, and he wants to know my thoughts. This dude, Harry Rogers, he is a troublemaker. What he does is he sends me stuff that really challenges me. He's the one behind sending me the worst of Led Zeppelin. He's behind the sending me what Pete Townsend had to say about Led Zeppelin and how he doesn't like anything, and he wanted me to kind of give my thoughts. He is also the guy who sent me the curse of Led Zeppelin, and he put me out in the woods by myself trying to kind of formulate some thoughts about that. So he really likes to challenge me on certain things. So this I can see as being one of those challenges. So that's why I wanted to isolate this video and not make it a part of the other one. With that all said, let's check this out, man. The Stones versus Led Zeppelin. Let's get it.
Who was the greatest rock band in the world from 1969 to 1979? Was it the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin? Both bands released 8 studio albums during this time. Who was the greatest band starting in 1969? The Rolling Stones released Beggar's Banquet in December 68, while Led Zeppelin released Led Zeppelin 1 in January 69. Both albums are engineered by Glyn Johns. The Rolling Stones released a #1 hit single, Honky Tonk Woman, in July. Led Zeppelin released A Whole Lotta Love, an edited single for the American market, in November 69, making #4 on the Billboard charts. The band refused to release singles in the UK. Led Zeppelin do 3 tours of North America. They also tour the UK and Scandinavia. The Rolling Stones play a free concert in Hyde Park after the death of Brian Jones and introduce Mick Taylor on guitar. They also embark on a 24-date US tour and play the Altamont Speedway in San Francisco on the 6th of December. Led Zeppelin 2 is released in October. Let It Bleed is released on the 5th of December. Led Zeppelin are creating their own status as rock legends, but 1969 goes to the Rolling Stones. 1970,
year by year
Led
comparison.
Zeppelin 3 is released in October. The Rolling Stones release one of the greatest live albums of all time, entitled Get Your Yayas Out, in September. Led Zeppelin complete 2 tours of North America and tour Europe, the UK, Iceland, Germany, and appear at the Bath Blues Festival in June 1970. The band's following has increased, and so have their album sales. The Stones embark on a 23-date tour of Europe and release the film Gimme Shelter, which portrays the Stones as a dangerous band in the public's eye, and they become even more famous for it. At this point in time, the Stones are known as the greatest rock and roll band in the world, but with Mick Taylor on guitar, they can easily compete in the 70s rock arena. But Led Zeppelin's touring schedule and album release gives them the edge. 1970 goes to Led Zeppelin. 1971, Led Zeppelin released their fourth album, untitled and commonly known as Led Zeppelin 4, in November. The Rolling Stones released their masterpiece, Sticky Fingers, in April on their own record label called Rolling Stones Records, featuring a tongue and lips logo. The Stones single, Brown Sugar, goes to number 1 on the Billboard charts, and the Stones embark on an 18-date UK tour in March. Led Zeppelin tour the UK, Europe, North America, Japan, and return for a second UK winter tour. Mick's marriage to Bianca starts a jet-setting lifestyle that gives the Stones the edge. But Led Zeppelin are the hardest working rock band in the world and have just released one of the greatest albums of all time, untitled, eventually going on to sell 37 million copies worldwide. So 1971 goes to Led Zeppelin. 1972,
I see how he's doing
Led
it.
Zeppelin embark on another world tour of Australia,
Popularity
North
and
America, Japan, and the UK, and do not release an album in 1972. The Rolling Stones release a double album called Exile on Main Street in May, and the Stones embark on a North American tour. The Stones' 1972 tour is glorified by the rock press, and they become the media darlings. 1972 goes to the Rolling Stones. 1973, Led Zeppelin release Houses of the Holy in March. The Stones release Goat's Head Soup in August and have another number 1 hit single with Angie. The rock press and the public at large start to take notice of Led Zeppelin for its fan base, album sales, and concert attendance records. They embark on another world tour and finish their American tour with 3 sold-out nights at the Madison Square Gardens. The band are exhausted and take a much-needed break of 18 months. The Rolling Stones tour Australia and Europe, featuring Mick Taylor for the last time on stage in the 1970s on lead guitar. 1973 goes to Led Zeppelin. 1974, the Rolling Stones release It's Only Rock and Roll in March, the album making number 1 on the Billboard charts and number 2 on the UK charts. The Rolling Stones decide not to tour in 74. Led Zeppelin do not tour or release an album and take time off to record. So 1974 goes to the Rolling Stones. 1975, Led Zeppelin released the double album Physical Graffiti in February on their own record label called Swan Song. The album is a huge critical and commercial success.
What about The
The Rolling Stones tour America with Ronnie Wood replacing
This
Mick
time
Taylor
period.
on guitar. It is a huge tour with 46 shows, but Led Zeppelin's music has now engulfed America, selling truckloads of albums. Although they only tour America in spring, they finish the touring year at the Earls Court Arena in London with 5 sold-out shows in May. 1975 goes to Led Zeppelin. 1976, Led Zeppelin began a run of bad luck, starting with a car crash in August 75 that injures Robert Plant, cancelling all touring plans for 1976. The band retreat to the recording studio and release their album Presence in March, and the film and soundtrack recorded from the 1973 tour called The Song Remains the Same. Both albums received mixed reviews. The Rolling Stones released the album Black and Blue in April, featuring guest guitarists, namely Ronnie Wood. The Stones embark on a massive tour of Europe and the UK, selling out 6 nights at the Earls Court London Arena in May, and also headlining the Nebworth Fair in August to 200,000 people. The Stones were not only the biggest band in the world, but they wholly defined what rock and roll should be. 1976 goes to the Rolling Stones. 1977, Keith famously gets busted in Toronto on the 24th of Feb. and suddenly the future of the Stones is in doubt. They release a live album, Love You Live, in September to mixed reviews. The Stones do not tour or release a studio album in '77. Zeppelin embark on their largest North American tour ever, 53 dates, selling 1.3 million tickets. On the 30th of April, they performed to 76,000 people at the Pontiac Silverdome Stadium, a new world record attendance for a solo indoor attraction. The tour is cut short after 44 shows due to the death of Robert Plant's son. Plant goes into mourning. The massive tour gives 1977 to Led Zeppelin. 1978, while Robert Plant mourns the death of his son, Led Zeppelin's future is in doubt. The Stones bounce back and release one of their best-selling albums of the 70s in June called Some Girls. They also have a #1 hit single with Miss You. They embark on a 25-date stadium tour of North America with a back-to-roots rock and roll energy. 1978 goes to the Rolling Stones.
My favorite frontman.
1979, the Rolling Stones spend the year recording Emotional Rescue. Led Zeppelin release In Through the Outdoor in August '79, the album cover coming out in a brown paper bag. Led Zeppelin then headlined the Nebworth Festival on the 4th and 11th of August as comeback shows. The Rolling Stones take the year off, so 1979 goes to Led Zeppelin. So Led Zeppelin 6, the Rolling Stones 5. Rolling Stones road manager and pianist Ian Stewart is the only session musician to ever play on any Led Zeppelin recording. He played piano on Rock and Roll and Boogie with Stu. Jimmy Page recorded with the Stones in the early 1960s and ended up on a demo version of Heart of Stone. He also recorded with the Stones in 1973 on the Goat's Head Soup sessions and ended up on a song called Scarlet, released on the deluxe edition in 2020. Page also played on One Hit to the Body in '85. John Paul Jones also did the string arrangement for the Stones recording She's a Rainbow. Please comment on what you think. Subscribe to Classic Rock Cave. Thanks for watching. Cheers for now.
Aren't they? I know Page played on the Who's, what was the song? Can't Explain, I believe it is. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, Harry, you're leaving me out in the woods again, brother, to fend for myself here. What do I think of all of this? Well, first, let's do this. Let's see what the fans are saying about this, man. You know that there's going to be some back and forth. Let's see what the fans have to say. Check out. So Classic Rock Cave is the presenter, and his intro note says the Stones and Zeppelin both released 8 studio albums from December '68 to August '79. This is more of a celebration than a competition. I'm a big Rolling Stones fan, but also a Led Zeppelin fan. Okay. Yeah, more a comparison than a competition for sure. I mean, it's interesting to see the contrast, you know, of the two probably biggest influential bands of the 70s and to see their activity and, you know, that kind of, and it's really, really good as a comparison base. And if you're a budding young rock and roll star and you say, yeah, man, I want to be just as influential, if I have just as much talent and I increase my activity level to so and so and such, I will achieve that level of success. I mean, so, you know, it's got its uses. But anyway, let's see what some of the fans have to say, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Zeppelin is the greatest band of all time. Led Zeppelin, best drummer of all time, so he's breaking it down. Led Zeppelin for the win. I actually think Zepp would win too. Stones were best in the 60s through the early 70s. The Stones are not one of my favorite bands at that time, but Led Zeppelin is my favorite above all. That said, the Stones, their guitar riffs alone, are a worthy contender for greatness. Yet, the Zepp wins it hands down. Before the video started, I already had my mind made up. Zeppelin's catalog is much more diverse and groundbreaking musically. I would say 5.5 years each. Two incredibly great bands. Yeah. Both great bands, top of their respective games. I love Zeppelin, and Jimmy Page plays on two of my favorite Stones songs, but I gotta go with the Stones. Two great bands, the greatest is a matter of personal taste. Rest in peace, Charlie Watts. Absolutely. Led Zeppelin is better. And he's got this smiley, winky face with a whole row of teeth. Led Zeppelin, starry eyes and hearts. Both great bands, prefer to enjoy both. There you go. The mighty Led Zeppelin, hammer of the gods. Led Zeppelin, baby. Zepp, of course, but the Stones are awesome. Led Zepp, the goats. Rolling Stone, rock and roll. Led Zeppelin, hard rock. Queen, glam rock. Pink Floyd, progressive rock, etc. Yes, I know the borders are not clear, but on the long run, these bands are different worlds. Yes, they are. Not even close. Led Zeppelin by a country mile. Stones for sure. Nobody can compete with Led Zeppelin, period. Yeah, so it's a back and forth thing. In the end, you know what? These are my thoughts. These are my thoughts. Harry, you're challenging my ass? Okay, these are my thoughts. In the world of Wayne's mind, where it comes to these great rock artists, so far in my walk, my 3-year journey of rock and roll on my channel, I have a top level. And on this top level, you've got the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, and Led Zeppelin. Those four are on my top level. And at that level, I consider that level to be the greatest of all time. The greatest of the greats, you know, the kings of the kings. And when you're comparing those four, it's basically just a matter of factly, really. You know, it's based on personal preference at that point, because all four of them have achieved that high stratospheric level of success, to the point where it's just switching out apples for oranges based on your personal preference of taste, sound, creative input, whatever the case is. You know, those four bands, in my opinion, have reached the higher stratosphere of great rock and roll success. They are the four icons. They're the four horsemen to me. And that's my top tier right there. And of course, you know, a lot of you will have different top tier levels. You might say, we'll add another group to that top tier, like the Sabbaths or Pink Floyd or whatever the case is. We each have our own top tier, but those four are mine. And it isn't really that relevant as to who is greater than who. It's a matter of personal opinion. So that's why, for example, and getting back to you, Harry, I don't understand why certain people consider themselves so entitled or hold on to things that don't matter. I'm talking about Pete Townshend in his address about, I've never liked anything these guys have ever done. I know that people are really big on them, and I know that this is this and this, but I've just never liked anything that they've ever done. You are full of shit. And I know that some people are saying, yeah, he's just tongue-in-cheek. That's his old British wit humor. No, I don't believe it. I believe that he was serious about that. But here's the thing. You have founded one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time. And in a lot of people's opinion, the greatest of all time, being the Who. Why are you so butthurt over the success of Led Zeppelin? Why? Right? You got to be satisfied to share that plateau of success. That's the thing. You know, you have a level of accomplishment that is just reserved for you alone. Zeppelin has a level of accomplishment reserved for them alone. The Stones, everybody else have their own level of accomplishment. So why be jealous of somebody else's success, especially when you've achieved the same success on the same level? There's definitely much notoriety, wealth, everything of all to enjoy and share. So why hang on to animosity and why be butthurt? I will never understand that about Pete Townshend. I will never understand it. And I don't believe anyone who says that, it's just his wry, dry British humor. No, it isn't. He is butthurt about something. Is it because at one point in time, he might have been losing out on Keith Moon and John Entwistle, leaving to perhaps join Jimmy Page to form a super group? There's a number of things, but basically, those four groups are my top level. That's how I feel, right? And that's the only knack against Pete Townshend. Otherwise, to me, he's a rock genius and a rock god, on the same rubbing shoulder level creatively as anybody else, including Jimmy Page. Yes, Jimmy Page has now graduated to being my favorite musician, not only for his playing style, not only for his swag and his presentation and all of that sort of thing, but the road that he has traveled, following his bliss, going from being a young lad, discovering a guitar that was abandoned in his house, tuning it, and just traveling that road. One of the greatest stories in music ever told, the development and the formation of Led Zeppelin. Having said all of that though, with them, let's say Led Zeppelin is my favorite group, and let's say he's my favorite musician, Mick Jagger is my favorite frontman. Nobody else. Everybody else is a distant second to him where it comes to my personal preference. Where it comes to somebody who is capable of being really expressive in music, in a concept album form, telling a story, it's The Who for me, baby. Nobody else will ever be able to compete with the concept albums of The Who. So you see, there are different areas of accomplishment and success that makes them the best ever at what they do. And those four bands, like I've mentioned before, they are the top tier for me, right? Anyway, that's pretty much in a nutshell what I have to say, Harry, about this. And I can appreciate this breakdown comparison. It's really informative, especially for somebody who is new to rock and roll and getting information and collecting information. But in the end, it isn't enough to sway you from one point of view to another about who your personal favorite is. It won't do that, but it will give you a breakdown and a comparison of, and you'll say to yourself, wow, these guys were really busy. And he's basing it based on how busy they were, concert dates, how many albums they had sold, and it's just basically the amount of activity that they were putting in a given year and the amount of success and the boom that they were getting. Yeah, it's got its value, but it's not the end-all analysis. So I can take it for what it is. It's still got value though, man. And that's basically my my POV on this subject matter, and I can always break down for you my second level, my third and my fourth level where it comes to rock band, but I don't have to, man. That's my top level. Those four super groups, as I call them. Everyone else is on the second, third, or fourth plane. Those are the guys that take the top shelf. So let me just see what I got coming up here before I bounce. Yeah, so Finesse. I got, I believe it's early Chicago. I got to do for Finesse. And Brian has Rush coming up. I can't remember what Jeff's got. And then Jacob and Quincy. So I got some reactions to get to. But I know that there's another Led Zeppelin thing going on within these five people. I can't remember who exactly. So that is what's happening, man. So this concludes my second Led Zeppelin reaction of the day. I had to break Harry's recommendations into two videos, only because I know that this particular comparison breakdown should be a video all by itself. So that's why I separated it from the Becoming Led Zeppelin documentary information. All right, so that is it, man. That's my take. I hope you guys appreciate my point of view. Don't slay me if I didn't include your favorite bands or whatever it is. It's just my own personal take, my own personal perception on things, and my own feelings on certain things. Everyone is going to be different, but I don't think that there's anyone out there who would doubt me where it comes to that top level. You know, I'm sure you might say, well, yeah, somebody else belongs on that level with them, but there's no arguing that those four bands have been four of the greatest influences of the entire rock genre, especially around that time period. You know, let's even go earlier, you know, the 60s, 70s, and into the late 70s. You know, those four bands really had a strong presence in every single thing. So those are the four greatest bands in my opinion, man. Anyways, you guys have yourselves a good one. Take care, and I'll catch you in my next reaction. Peace.